Hey everyone, today we're going to cover issue number 1 of The Children of the Vault, which was written by Deniz. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, this issue opens at the vault located in Ecuador after the events of the Hellfire Gala. Now the way this issue starts is by following a timeline. And on this timeline, we get to see moment-by-moment play-by-play on Forge's systems failing. At 22:41 on July the 26th, all systems appear normal, but the machine is already beginning to fail. For Krakoa has fallen and the mutants are dead. But still, the dream holds. The next morning at 7:12, one of the figures inside the machine begins to stir as error signals appear with sound and warnings alarms, but there is no one to hear them. But still the dream holds. At 10:38, logic gates rust permanently shut as the root of the system withers. And inside the stimulation world of the machine, the sky flickered like a broken screen, the cities boil, and life no longer resemble reality. But still, the dreams hold. At 19:32 that evening, the machine convulses once, twice, 3 times, and then the machine ultimately dies and the dream along with it. And just 1 minute later, the children of the vaults are born back into the world they thought was already theirs. Serafina 187 is the first to gather herself. And within the speed of light, all the machines on Earth tell her their secrets, and completely catches her up to speed. Now this left the children of the vault upset about their accomplishments being null and void, for the mutants used their dreams as their personal prisons. But with the digital info dump, Serafina informs the others about the fall of Krakoa. For the dream is over and they are finally free at last. And the first thing they must do is return to the vault and inform their city of the current events. Because from the children of the vault's perspective, defeating mutant kind was their sole purpose of being, but with them gone, the reason for them hiding for so long and constantly improving themselves just doesn't make sense anymore. So with their biggest enemies gone, we transition sometime later in northern Chile, where we see a poor kid by the name Rodrigo walking alone in lithium-filled water. For his life was filled with hardships which included the murder of his mother and the exportation of his homeland for the benefit of foreign nations. For the big corporation mined and extracted the lithium to create cell phones without caring about the impact it would have on the native land. But due to the pressures of life and the struggle for survival, Rodrigo did the unthinkable and proceeded to gulp down the poison water and continue to think of his mother as he stares at his phone. But at that moment something crazy happened, for in the reflection of his phone sat the children of the Vault Flying City in all its glory. For they are done hiding and are ready to reveal themselves to the world. So with that going down, we jump over to a captive Cable, who is currently being held at an Orchis Black Brain psychic interrogation site located on the outside of Washington, D.C. So as the AIM mind flayer burrows into his neocortex, Cable's only conscious thoughts were, what is. Now this phrase is holy words where he is from, and like any good holy words, they can mean many things to many people. So to Cable, right now, they mean, accept what you can't change, and change what you can't accept. And as for how they caught him sleeping, and just so you know, when I use the term sleeping, I don't mean literally, for Cable hasn't slept in years. But anyway, Orchis had surprised him on his ship, a ship that is probably disassembled on the floor of an Orchis hangar somewhere, along with his favorite arm and anything else they could get their hands on. And just for the record, Cable really loved that arm. So for over a month now, Orchis have been torturing him with everything they got. They started with cutting-edge science, using S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Patriot probes, Strike's psychic scalps, and they even used a form of talk therapy that was developed by Dr. Faustus. And when those didn't work, they just went back to that all-time classic pain. Now the reason why they want him so badly is because Orchis wants his secrets. They want to know everything he knows about the past, present, and especially the future. So as they was hard at work, studying him, he in return was secretly studying them while within a bubble that is thought impermeable and designed to hold an Xavier-level telepath indefinitely. But the crazy part about this situation is no matter how much security they had on him, he was said to be able to break out and escape within 3 days if left on his own. But luckily for him, he didn't have to wait that long, for things move fast and a lot can happen in 3 days. Because out of nowhere an explosion set him free in front of several Orchis soldiers, but before they could open fire on him, a familiar kinetic blast blindsides them, sending them flying away. So with Cable standing in shock, Bishop emerged from the doorway with energy still radiating from his hand. So with yet another refugee from the future on the scene, both men have had a long and bloody history together in the far future. And if Cable was being completely truthful with himself, he would have rather accepted help from Apocalypse. So as the two dash down the hallway, they come across yet another attachment of Orchis troops, but this time Cable had a plan. For he tells Bishop to stop and wait, for he thinks he knows these men and they know us as well. Because within the brief moment, Cable used his psychic power to convince them that they were Krakoan spies who were ready to die for their cause. Which was exactly what they did, for the Orchis soldiers fought tooth and nail to protect the two mutants. So as they continue to make their way down the hallway, Cable once again brings up how they got his favorite arm. Which Bishop replies to his comment by saying we're not going back for it. But see, Cable never had an intention to go back for it, for the arm exploded and took the base with it. So as the fight moves outdoors, only one mutant Orchis soldier will be captured alive. So Orchis psychiatrists will try it, but ultimately be unable to convince him that he is a victim of mind control. And later on that night, he will escape his holding cell and run to the roof in an attempt to use his mutant power of flight, but unfortunately, the 10-story fall will break most of his bones and collapse both lungs. So as he lay dying, his last wish was to be buried among his people on Krakoa. And as you may have assumed, that was not honored. So as Bishop and Cable gun it down the road, Cable takes a look into Bishop's mind only to find out about the events that took place during the gala. So with Krakoa and its gates off the table, Cable informs Bishop that he has a spot nearby where they can regroup. So with the two time travelers regrouping, we skip over to the children of the vault introducing themselves to the world as the children of tomorrow. And they tell the people of Earth that they bring a message that they will speak in their languages, for their gifts are for everyone. So they go on to say, when their ancestors left, they understood that mankind was on the road to self-destruction, that they needed answers faster than they could hope to find them. So to get those answers, they locked themselves away in a place where time moves faster. Though only a few decades passed for humans on the outside, their society on the inside has progressed to tens of thousands of years. And during that time, war, ecological catastrophe, diseases, prejudice, property, and pain have been solved. For those are the stuff of ancient history. For they solved those problems generations ago, and they wish to share their solutions with all freely. She then goes on to say their ancestors left so that, one day in the future, they might return to save the past. And that day is today, for the future is here. And their message is simple: leave the past behind and become the future. Now the message was spread among those who are most in need to hear it, starting with the poorest places on Earth. And the way they did it was by deploying self-replicating technology 10,000 years ahead of its time, and those machines unfolded and integrated themselves, and started to consume and convert the already existing architecture as raw materials, to create brand new elements overnight, which redesigned the skyline and changed the night skies. The technology was so far advanced that the people within called it Tomorrow Towns. And some of the things it had within those cities were machines to heal wounds and extend their lifespans, machines that extend their minds, machines that could rearrange rocks into food to eat, machines to strain together oxygen and hydrogen atoms to create lakes from deserts, machines that grant your every wish, machines made of imagination, and even machines that could even dream for you. So with all these accomplishments within a short period of time, the fame given to the children of tomorrow grew rapidly. Now, the children of tomorrow didn't just bring machines to gain favor with the people of today, but they also brought deeds. So when a tsunami threatened the Philippines Islands, Capitan arrived on the scene and hit the Pacific Ocean until it stopped moving. Following that, when an earthquake struck the Turkish city, Prisa was already moving everywhere. And at just under a light speed, she evaluated all 43,000 residents one by one before the buildings even began to fall. But see, even with all these deeds, at first the government wanted to test them for violations against their sovereign territories. One such time was in Queensland after Pharaoh stops a 40-mile-wide wildfire. The Australian Air Force attempted to interfere. But due to the children's ability to get things done and public opinion being on their side, the government couldn't do much. So just like that, tales of their victories spread along with their message. So eventually the children of tomorrow grew into such a big problem for the world leaders to solve, so for the first time, they decided to do nothing. Even Orchis, high on victory and paranoia, refused to confront them, and in internal meetings decided the children are a secondary concern that they will observe only. For they must finish what they started with the mutants. And in just a month the whole world became a different place. So with everything changing, we skip over to Hell's Kitchen with Bishop and Cable walking down the street talking about how they are surprised the cities are still standing. Because when they first crossed paths the children were dead set on world domination, but now it is like they are rebranding their image. And for a brief moment when Bishop heard them speak, he wanted to believe them, which was strange because Bishop never gives people the benefit of the doubt because they must earn it. So with speculation rising within our heroes, Bishop brings up how he believes they are most likely messing with their minds somehow. So with that out there, the two make their way to a storefront, which was a cover for Cable's storehouse. And in that storehouse was everything Bishop would have needed to wage war. For Bishop imagines what he could have accomplished if he'd known about this place before. For the last month, he's been fighting a war with nothing but the clothes on his back and what he could steal. Because to him, all that matters is the list. Because during the day, he sleeps under bridges and in the basements of condemned buildings, pretty much places no one would think to look for him at. But when night falls, that is when he moves. And thus far during his crusade, H has hit 8 Orchis facilities in the last month, targeting mostly supply depots and 1 research lab. But despite how many targets he hits, he is still far from accomplishing his goals, for there were 1,743 Orchis facilities on his list, from space stations to strip malls. Because Bishop's aim is to burn every one of them to the ground, even if it takes him to the end of time. But in order to get to the list, the situation with the children would have to be dealt with, and Bishop had to admit he couldn't deal with it alone. For it was 1 versus 1 million, so, of course, he needed help. Now Cable wouldn't have been his first choice, but Bishop was used to no good choices. Because they would never really trust each other, and Bishop knows that. Because in the past they had a misunderstanding and went to war over it. Now, Bishop had done things he wasn't too proud of, but he thought his reasons were good enough, but he was wrong. Some things can't be forgiven, but whatever they are to each other, they're both still mutants. So as the two were looking at each other, Cable tells him that he was looking at his mind, and if someone had been in there, then they were immaculate. Because they didn't even leave a fingerprint in any of the usual places, with no obvious signs of tampering. But after looking further into his mind, Cable did manage to see a spot on his mind. And whatever it was, it seems to be growing. Because somehow, some way the children were able to infect him with a virus, and since Cable now knows where it is located, it is pretty obvious looking back at it. And if the telepaths weren't dead after the gala, then someone would have caught it before. So with that information out there, Bishop asks if he should wear a hazmat suit considering he is infected. But Cable reassures him that the virus doesn't spread that way. Because the infection does spread from person to person, but it moves more like how an idea would spread. Because this kind of tech we're talking about is some high-level semiotic engineering. And when it comes to stopping it, that is harder said than done. Because plagues are notoriously difficult to control, but ideas are even more so. So with that said, this issue of Children of the Vault comes to an end. So down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.